Hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar series, How I Did It. Today, we are doing this webinar series on project management, and basically, it is about to be or not to be a project manager, what are pros and cons of being a project manager, and how you can become one, whether or not you have a prior experience. So joining today with me are two very special speakers with us. First of all, let me welcome Shashank Parala. Shashank is also one of my colleagues at one of my master's programs. So we met there and we had very interesting discussions on different technical topics. Another guest speaker who happened to be my professor once, in my bachelor's program. Very amazing speaker. He is also joining us from Saskatchewan, actually, and Shashank is from Toronto. So, first of all, hello to both of you. How are you guys doing this early morning? I think it's early for you, Amar.
It is pretty early in Regina. You are able to hear me, Sarah?
Yes,
Loud and clear?
I am.
Excellent. Excellent. It is minus 17 degrees today and feels like minus 28. Bright and sunny, and sun is always deceiving in Saskatchewan. We get a lot of sun, not a very overcast most of the time, but we do see really frigid temperatures there. Welcoming all of you. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me, Sarah.
No problem at all.
Hello.
It is a pleasure. Hi,
Yeah.
Shashank.
Hello. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you again after a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, the weather's not bad here. I mean, it's Toronto so much better than I must say Saskatchewan. The weather's like 2 degrees, 3 degrees. I guess it's a bit cloudy, but these days it's always cloudy. So I got used to this at this point. But apart from that,
Okay.
yeah, happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for inviting me, Sarah.
No problem at all. It was much awaited one for me, but I'm so happy that you guys actually made it. It's kind of early, but you made it. That's great. So this is how we're gonna go. First of all, this is the opening. I already did the opening. I'm just gonna tell our viewers what NeedSpot is or what NeedSpot webinar series is. Then we're gonna go with the introduction, a proper introduction, not just hello and I, from Shashank and Amar. So after that, we're gonna go into some panel discussions. I have a few questions from you, Shashank, and some more questions from Amar. We're gonna see if anybody in our viewers have questions. We're gonna take the questions. Otherwise, we're gonna move on with our Q&A sessions. So I can't wait to get all the juicy information from you too. So Shashank, can you actually introduce yourself to our audience? And yeah, the floor is yours.
Sure. So those of you who don't know me, currently I'm working as a technical program manager at Amazon. Joined them quite recently after my graduation in Masters in Entrepreneurship, where I met Sarah. And prior to my TPM role at Amazon, I worked in another retail organization, pretty large one again. It's Tesco. It's third largest retailer in the world, I guess, and pretty huge in Europe. Again, there I started my career as a software developer, transitioned into technical program management, worked there for 4 years. And in between, during my master's, I got a chance to work on my entrepreneurship journey. And apart from my career, I'm a big fanatic about Web3 ecosystem. So I spend a lot of time trying to understand what are the latest technologies that can make the world a little bit better place. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Shashank, for introducing yourself. That it's very interesting to know, also because I know you traveled from one place to another country. You're pretty new here. We kind of
Yes.
like came together, so it's a bit of a very interesting journey when I heard about it, of course, offline. And so I can't wait to ask you a lot of questions around that because
Sure.
there are many people coming to Canada, and they are most of them are experienced, and they sometimes have to start from the scratch. So you must have also some strategies around that, some tips around that. So I'll go in a minute, but first I would invite Amar to actually introduce himself to our audience.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Amar Abbas. I lead a project management office for ISM Canada. That is an IBM and a Kyndryl company. If you guys are following the technology space, you would identify that IBM is split into two companies recently. So one mostly focusing on the infrastructure side and somewhat on software. That remains Kyndryl, that my team as well as my organization rolls up to. I have a team of it varies between the contractors and full-time employees between 20 to 25 people, mostly PMs and a small segment of business analysts. Been in the project management domain for almost 15 years. Started in Canada as a consulting PM. I have worked with large organizations like Farm Credit Canada, utility companies like SAS Power, some in the non-profit space, Ranch Arlo, one of the largest nonprofit organization in Saskatchewan. I have implemented almost all sort of projects, been in this space for a long time, like software implementations. We have done large and cutting edge hardware implementation like software-defined radios, software-defined networks. We have recently got into the digital transformation space. So right now I'm managing a team. I'm not running most of the projects, but it is more of a governance layer that I come into. I'm more than happy to entertain any questions. Just at the background, I'm also an immigrant here in Canada for the last 10 years. So I'm expecting there could be some people who would be interested to know. I have a few tips and certain pointers for you guys. If you want to start in project management, I will be happy to share that with you. Back to you, Sarah.
And actually, this is exactly why we are here today, to actually get all the insights and all the questions answered from you, because you have been the hiring manager as well. So we want to know what goes in the mind of a hiring manager. And if somebody is, especially today, is interested in getting into this space, project management space in North America, and what they need to do. And so,
Absolutely.
I'm going to bring on board Shashank as well. And so, I have questions that I will target to both of you, and please feel free to jump in if you have any other insight. So, first of all, Shashank, I would welcome to Canada, and also Amar. Like, now you are like our senior immigrant who has been here and may have tips around that. We're definitely gonna get it from you. But first, Shashank, you started your career as a software engineer, so you had a technical background and a hands-on experience while being technical. And you mentioned that you transitioned towards program management. So before we dig into further conversation, why don't you tell us the difference between the program management and project management, on how they are related? What were you doing? So yeah, on to you, Shashank.
Yes, that's a good question actually. In the beginning, even I was confused when I was transitioning as a software developer to program management, right? So like, what's the difference? One on the same, because even initially when I got started as program management, I was in the beginning still confused because I was just running projects, etc. But when you think of like what's the difference between program manager and project manager, a project manager is specifically focused on this one particular project with a team and trying to deliver the value for whatever the project is working on. That's his end goal. Program is nothing but a more of a, like, projects are subset of a program. So you are thinking from a business initiatives. So you get an initiative from business, you think this is the program I can run, and these are set of projects I need to work along with different teams. And when all of these things happen and they come together and they deliver value at the end of the day for the business. So it's nothing more than you are managing multiple projects with a similar objective, and you can have different programs. I do not manage just one program at a time. So many people have this assumption you are running a program, you're just running one or two projects. No, an organization, you're looking at different initiatives. And as a program manager, I'm always thinking of how can I deliver most value in a given time frame to an organization. So accordingly, I pick the projects under different initiatives, and that will fall into different programs. So yeah, it's nothing but you're thinking of multiple projects that will at the end come together and add value to an organization.
And is there a difference between when you mentioned technical program manager and then a program manager or a project manager? What can you tell me about that?
Yes, so this difference again changes between organization to organization. Even though in many organizations you have technical program management roles, they may not be that technically inclined. Whereas, for example, in Amazon, technical program management role is a bit more technically inclined. Even in the interviews, if you go through the process, right, they do ask you a lot of questions around your past experiences, and they do ask even questions around design a system and stuff like that. It's because the primary difference is project manager is thinking about what are my deliverables, who are my key stakeholders when I'm delivering value. But where technical program manager is always also thinking about, are we using the right technologies to build a product? And he has a say in this key technology decisions that's being happening. He is able to freely interact with the engineers, software developers in a technology conversation. And the primary difference is the glue that is helping, the business teams, the product teams, and the engineering teams together. Because when you're talking to a business team, you're taking initiatives in business terminology, but you need to translate these requirements to a engineering team in more technical terms and be able to have those conversations. So that's the primary difference. You need to understand technology to a certain extent and have those deep dive conversations with the developers. Yeah.
Thank you, Shashank. Thank you for clarifying this. So, my next question is from Amar. Amar, you said that you actually started your career as a project manager when you moved to Canada. You did have a prior career prior to project management. Can you touch on that? And then my follow up question would be, what basically made you follow this career? What sparked in you that you want to be a project manager?
Sure. You want me to go back to the future, not the past. So, in terms of like, Sarah, you know me, like I had my past with academics. I have my master's in research, mostly in the computer networks and computer systems. So I did start it as an assistant professor at a university where I met Sarah. She was my graduate student. We did the final year project together. Sarah also remembers that I had entrepreneurial side of me too, where we were running small startup companies. Sarah and Sarah's husband Furqan were part of the bigger and larger team that we had. We were working on multiple solutions. So I was always into, like, you can always see that I had a two-sided personality. One is very academically focused. If you had asked me the same definition of program management, I would have given you a PMI definition. Like, that's me, kind of a background of academics. The second part that was not very much resonating in academics was that there was not enough thrill. There was not a lot of creativity. There was not much excitement. It was a pretty standard, this is the boundary of your course, and this is what you're going to teach. So there was always something exciting that I was looking for. So we were experimenting with different solutions. We were looking into different startup strategies. That gave me an understanding of my leadership style. I understood that this is a mechanism how I can use some of my skills and academic background to deliver large and complex solution. And then being academically driven, what I realized that some certification or some better structure of understanding how to deliver these type of solutions will help. So I looked around and I realized that project management certification, PMP, was the right set of activities for me. So I started with the PMP. So as we were transitioning and we were immigrating to Canada, I had already gone through project management training. I had some experience. I had some solid research and academics background. One thing that I will pass on to most of the people as an immigrant who are listening to me, one thing probably I did right was not to just remain in a province that was pretty saturated with some of the skill set. We were fortunate that my in-laws were in Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan had more openings for project manager at this at a starting level. So we landed in, and we were very fortunate that I started applying, and within few days, I started to get some interviews. So for me, Sarah, if I try to kind of look back, one was always a thrill to get back in industry, not being a stereotype professor, trying to look into some creative world. So that was my reason to kind of transition into the world of project management. Second thing was getting into the certification. And third major thing that I did was moving in a province where there was shortage of certain resources or skill set that enabled me to get into this field.
Thank you so much for sharing this. This is fantastic. I actually want to know that there are many people who would want to take this path or career path and become project manager. Some of them are the ones who are just starting, have not started and are thinking about it. They're coming from different backgrounds, not necessarily technical background. And the ones who are entering as a project manager, but in a different industry. A project manager, if we think about it, we have to know that, are we talking about tech industry, right? There's a tech industry project manager. We are dealing with software or very similar technology related projects. And then there are some on-site, for example, projects, industrial projects as well. So some people are coming from there and they want to enter into that space. So yes, definitely we're going to touch further into this basically insight. So my question first from you is, when you mentioned about the certifications, which certifications you basically started to work on first and go for first, and how long did it take you? Was it valuable?
You want me to go with that, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. So let me take a step back. And if you're looking at the project management, and Shashank may also second me, it's a dilemma with this particular domain, just like some other domains where you got to have a portfolio before you get a position. For example, when I'm hiring, I'm looking into what type of projects you have done, what is your education, what is your certification. So there's a bit of a catch-22 that you, for example, as an artist, as an architect, like you go with your portfolio of the projects and say, this is what I have achieved. This is why I'm interested in this particular position. Same, like if you have never done projects, it's hard to become a project manager. But if you don't do projects, you will never be a project manager. So there's a catch-22 chicken and egg situation in this particular domain. So there are certain suggestions that I have for that particular problem and how to solve that one. But having some background or turning some of your previous work to reflect your project work, that will be great. For example, if you have been part of some product development, talk about how you were working as part of the bigger project team. If you have been in a construction is a really good example where this particular project management thrives very much. So you have to kind of describe your working as a project. So there are a lot of things that we consider as projects, but we don't recognize them as projects. So there's a way to make sure that when you're presenting yourself as a project manager, that you have done some projects or you have a good understanding of what a project means and what were the roles and activities that you have performed. So that's first thing. The second thing is that if I'm in the hiring seat, if I'm taking a risk on you, knowing that you don't have enough depth of experience in project management, I will always fall back to looking at what training and certifications you have done. So every domain has a certain language. There is a lingo that we all use in the project manager when we talk about WBS, when we talk about forecasting and a few other things. So I want to make sure that at least you're equipped with the fundamental knowledge of this domain, that if I bring you on as a team member, there's enough room for me to coach you and guide you. I don't have to start from the scratch. So the first thing is experience. The second one is a certification. And if you have a combination of both, that puts you much higher in that level that where the hiring manager will be interested in. Project management certification, there are multiple certifications out there, but the one that is most valued is PMP. That is from PMI organization. It is the most respected credential that you can get, and it definitely requires some hard work. I have gone through this process, so it will take you minimum 5 to 6 months of real-time investment to get through the certification. And interesting enough, with Microsoft, Oracle, and there's so many other certifications we have gone in past, there's not a lot of support in terms of PMP preparation. There are some really excellent mechanism or some platforms or instructors available to teach you. But when it comes to like, there should be some previous exams, there could be some guiding questions. There's not a lot of quality material out there. So what I always recommend is to start working as a project so you have an understanding of certain terminologies when people speak around you, and then have a training path in front of you. So if you can certify and have built some experience, you will become a very attractive, skilled person.
Thank you so much. This is such a valuable information, Amar. I remember the time when I came here, I was doing my master's, and we did have a project management or product management related course as well. And we were basically seeing the difference between what a product manager would start if they don't have prior experience, and then if I want to be a project manager, how do I start? And the first few questions that came to my mind is these certifications, because there were so many different kind of certifications. And then I was also thinking, okay, what is the fastest way of becoming a project manager in a stable company? Not just a startup, but also like the Canadian corporates, because the first thing that comes to your mind as an immigrant is finding this stable job as well. So coming back to that point, I think, Shashank, I want to ask from you is, you were working as a program manager or a project manager in a different country, like in India, but you have to come here in a new country. What difference did you see? I remember you mentioned you transitioned into program management, but over here you had to start from the scratch. Did you face any difficulty, because that's the career path you chose over here? So what did you have to do? Please let us know.
Sure. I mean, that's a good question, right? Like, I first of all, I back all the points that Amar has said about, the importance of the roadmap you need to become a project manager, and the importance of some of these certifications, for example, PMP. And I did not have these certifications to start with. So that definitely was an hurdle, because as you said, right, like I initially became a program manager in India. I did work some time in United Kingdom, England, because Tesco was based out of there. So I used to travel back and forth. But once I moved to Canada, reality hit different. A lot of Canadian companies do prefer Canadian experience, Canadian project experience, especially if you want to become a project manager. And without having some good certifications like PMP, PMI, or having like a long portfolio, it's going to be a difficult place to land a job. So the first thing I did was to prepare a summary of all my previous experiences, previous projects, because whenever you are going to have this conversation, right, like as Amar just said, like people are interested, do you have a relevant certification, and do you have the relevant experience to talk about? Even though many of us do have these relevant experiences, even if you're not a project manager, but as a software developer, you are working in a project, you do tend to gather these experiences because still you're working in a project. We do not know how to communicate these experiences. We do not know how to sell these stories. So if you can show how you took the lead and how you took the initiative to deliver a project and add value to a project, that can even add as a plus point as part of your resume or portfolio or your interview process. But the key thing is, try to find, like for example, if you already come from a technology background, it's good if you can target technology companies in a similar ecosystem. I came from a retail technology background, Tesco. So my immediate target was like, when I started reach out to all companies, I did not get any response. But then I started focusing on Walmart or Loblaws or Amazon, since all my experience becomes relevant because I worked in a similar technology industry. So these kind of things matter, but at the end of the day, it's all about the plan. You are a project manager. That's what you do for a living. So if you're you are a new immigrant to a country and trying to get a job, and you're blindly applying for it without any plan. So there is a saying, right? A man without a plan is planning to fail, or basically man or woman. No gender stereotype there, but yeah, if you do not have a plan, you're planning to fail. It's as simple as that. So even you should think of your hiring process and landing a job as a project management experience. Like, prepare a plan. Think of all my key stakeholders. Like, I need to deal with some of the contacts in organizations who can guide me, mentor me. I need to get in touch with hiring managers. I need to get in touch with, different folks, maybe from, if I'm doing a master's program, people who already got the project manager from my master's. Maybe I can take some pointers there. So you need to identify different moving parts, and then you need to prepare a plan on how I'm going to land this job. What is the training path I need to do? What is the certification I need to do? So I said having a plan helps. And if you really do not have any experience, doing that PMP certification definitely helps in Canada. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Shashank, you said that right. Sorry, interjecting you here. Certifications has a lot of value in Canada. That's a very important keyword Shashank has said,
Yeah.
because again, I explained the logic behind it. The people there are a lot of spaces where they will hire the immigrants or new entrant into the space who may not have a prior experience. So they want to validate that you're serious about discipline, looking at your certification. A lot of people ask me that in Canada, like, is it back in some other countries, the education has more merit, but in Canada, you will see a lot of certification, even going past your education value.
Yes, thank you so much, Shishig and Amar. I want to touch on the point where you said that certain project management skills, do some projects yourself, like your personal projects, if you are just starting, you don't have experience. But I want to know, what are the things as a project manager, when you're doing a personal project, you should do, what skills you need to basically reflect on your resumes if you're doing a personal project right on the side, whether or not you're taking an entrepreneurship route. So if you can touch on that, maybe Amar, you can start.
Definitely, I can. So starting with a certain soft skill, like, and there's a question from Brandon, I believe, in the chat too. I will try to quickly tie my response back to the question that Brandon has. So in terms of a project manager, there are certain soft skills that we always assess for, and we always encourage that people have that. The most important one is the communication. So Brandon, back to you. I'm assuming when you say design, I'm understanding this is a user experience, user interface, something along those lines, if I'm correct. You can correct me in the chat, or you can give me more definition of your background. What did you alluded from the design? So back to like the most important skill set that we look into any project manager is the communication. Secondly thing is that you have to be self-starter, since you are leading from the behind or the middle. That's the word that we use for the project managers. We heavily rely on our technical SMEs, but we are leaders in some sort. So communication, problem solving, being a self-starter, those are the key elements that we always look into. And you have to be very organized. Back to some of the elements that Shinshan already kind of indicated, you have to be pretty diligent in terms of what needs to be achieved, that we call scope, like what needs to be done here. So you have to describe your personal projects, anything that you have done in relevant space, in a way that this was my scope of the project. This is what I was trying to achieve. Like, what were my objectives? What were my goals? The second element that we always look is back to the plan. What was your approach? What was your strategy? How did you achieve and how you delivered on the scope? So there are certain keywords that we always look in a resume, like what were you trying to achieve, your objective, your scope. Second thing is having a strong plan. because planning is something that is like as given as a project manager. That's is basically in the title. That it says everything. So you have to be really good at planning, and planning comes, you don't need to be an expert at everything. You have to have a good facilitation skill in which you can work with other people to get and understand how they will collaborate with you to deliver this thing. PM are not supposed to be technical. They have to be technical enough to understand the technology so they can challenge the people and see where the people may diverge and they can take a wrong path. But we heavily rely on our SMEs, and we have to have a skill to get their information, build a solid plan, convince our leaders that this plan is going to get them to the desired results. And then there are certain things that we talk about. Again, I will get in some academics thing, but there is certain thing that we call monitoring. Once you have a plan, just don't let the people just go wild. You have to continuously monitor them that they are actually doing those activities, and we are coming closer and closer to our objectives. And sometimes, as a human or anybody else, the plans that we put in place will not get us or will not be executed in a way that you assume will get you to the desired result. Then there are certain course corrections. You sit together as a team, you redraw the plan. So there's a continuous planning aspect. So you're continuously planning, you're continuously monitoring, you're looking at the things, how my plan is executed, is it getting me to the right goal and direction, and not making some like nudging it, pushing it a bit on this back to the center, and making sure that you're on a track to get there. So communication, problem solving, continuously assessing how you're performing, back to your self-organization. And the other thing that I just said is that being an open communicator, we definitely have. Brandon, back to your question, design. Like, I assume you're interacting a lot with the users. So my point that I'm assuming you have a good communication skill. The second thing is that if you're understanding their requirements, you know where you have to take the team and other developers to get to the desired results. So there are some inherent elements already part of your work. So you can rephrase some of that work, or you can reparagraph that work as that you have led the teams in the direction to achieve the desired business outcomes using your design skills. And these skills are transferable into the project management.
Thank you, Amar, for such thorough explanation. And Brendan, I really hope that you have gotten the answer. Please let us know in the comments. While you were explaining about the key and the top skills of project manager planning and everything, I would say I would call some of the things time management as well, because time management is crucial for a project manager. So do you have, while you were working on multiple projects at that time, if you are not just starting this career from the scratch, how would you give, like, what tips would you give, how a project manager can manage their time in such a way? Like, do you have tips? How do you do that? And this question is basically for both Amar and Shashank. How do you manage your time to make sure that while you're working on multiple projects, you're planning in such a way that you are delivering all the results on time? So can you touch on that part?
Sure. So I'll take an example from my experience itself. So there was this one of these projects where I had to work with close to like it's crazy number, like 120 plus active stakeholders at the same time, because it's a data initiative and it's a very critical project for one of our old organizations where it's a compliance aspect, and pretty quickly a lot of things need to happen in parallel, and there were not lot many people with the domain knowledge to take up the project, right? So I was running the entire program, and I am dealing with 40 systems where 40 different teams were working and trying to put some security measures in place for our technology systems. Now, coming to time management, how it's possible for one person to go ahead and work with 40 different teams to make 40 different things happen in parallel? The thing is, once you have a plan and you are organized, we are at the end of the day are still human beings, and our memory space is limited. You need to have a written way of tracking system. So you need to have a tracking system. For example, even Excel sheets do work very well according to me. I just had an Excel sheet with 40 different rows tracking information about everything, what's happening. So develop a tracking system that works for you. And not all project managers are same. Everyone works in their own ways. What works for you may not work equally good for someone else. And then you pick your leaders. You cannot do everything. Your goal is how to eliminate ambiguity. Like, people, whenever there are large projects happening, there is a lot of ambiguity going on. The developers are only focused on developing it. The business teams are only focused on, are we delivering the value? And the product teams are only focused on, am I, my product is right? Is it serving the customer's needs? Is it value? But you are kind of the sole person who kind of understands aspects of everyone. You will try to place yourself in each of these shoes. Then you pick your leaders in each of these places. So 40 different teams, you pick your point of contacts. And as I said, communication is a very important skill set. Many times project managers, if they are not curious, you can never be a project manager, because constantly you're asking questions to different teams. What's happening? And if you, many people have this nature of, they will feel, I do not know this, am I dumb, should I be even asking this question? I ask all the dumb questions. It's better to ask dumb questions than be, if you ask a question, you may be a fool only for the moment, but if you do not ask a question, you are fool for the lifetime. So it's important that you are aware of what's happening with all these different teams. So you have a sheet, you are maintaining your notes, and you picked your point of contact in each of these teams, because I cannot really talk to all 120 teams and their stakeholders and everyone. So I pick a point of contact who is kind of a subject matter expertise in that specific area, so that he can give me that update. So at the end of the day, it's just like have everything in a written format, put it on your calendar, like, plan your weekly calendar. And Sarah just gave me a tip, it's even better to plan my monthly calendar, because she does entrepreneurship and she does 100 other things in life. So yeah, block time in your calendar and do have trackers. It helps you, keep track of things. Else, as human beings, we tend to forget things. So yeah, that's my short answer.
Yeah. And Sarah, I would like to add to it, because this is a really good question. And this is actually some of the interviews you will participate. They will actually ask you this question. Not saying too much about our interview guide, but there is a flavor of this when you will apply for our organization. And I will talk about that too, because I'm always hunting for talent. So for us, if you're saying everything needs to be done at a certain time or right now, there is some problem with prioritization. So if all, as a human being and in a corporate world, there's always infinite activities that you have to perform to be successful. You will always struggle that you look at your plate is never empty. So how do you work with so many consecutive or simultaneous activities? So one thing that we always encourage the people is to prioritize. What will impact your customer? That's the first thing. Like anything that you do or you feel there are certain activities that can impact the customer, those should be your highest priority. Sometimes we also ask the people to make sure that if there's any personal commitment that you have, you even put that on top of your customer activities, because if you are not healthy, if you're not in a right mental state, it will be hard for you to perform. So for me, the most important element is being able to prioritize, looking at what you have on your plate and how do you execute which is the most valuable task first. The second thing that we talk about is making sure that Shashank said that you have a strong team. If I'm taking this time away from my corporation, I'm very blessed having a very strong team. Build a very strong team around you. That is my life lesson. So you can delegate, what Shashank said, like then you don't have to do everything yourself. Don't be that person that he doesn't trust anybody else, or he doesn't trust the work of anybody else, or he's macromanaging or trying to review every small artifact that a person is providing. So make sure that delegation, prioritization, and the third thing is that negotiation. You have to negotiate sometime. There are always trades off. Like if your manager or somebody or your boss is asking you to perform 5 things and say that I have a capacity to do 2, what are the most important things? What I can leave for the future and you will be still happy with me. So having a strong negotiation skills, talking about and knowing your own capacity would definitely help. So quickly, prioritization, delegation, and negotiation.
I really like how you guys mentioned about the delegation and the team itself, and it's amazing because I would say like maybe 5 years ago, I would be that person who would not delegate or was too afraid to ask for help. And I thought that, hey, those, for example, tasks are assigned to me, so I have to be perfect. I have to finish it on time, and that really, led me towards burnouts. And when you mentioned, Amar, that most important task is if you have personal commitments and you're not fulfilling those commitments, you're definitely not healthy. And then if you are not healthy enough, then you have too much on your mind and you won't be productive at work. So yeah, I truly believe in that thing. And the thing that Shashank mentioned about monthly time management is because I realized that I love to multitask. I have too much on my plate, I would say, being a mother as well, and starting a NeedSpot, webinar series, and so many things that makes me happy. But while we were talking offline, because I said that I am not too sure about the day, like what I would do in a day after working full time, because I'm also working full time. What I try to do is, because I have personal commitments, then I have maybe side projects that keeps me going on. I don't want to be out of touch from technology itself, and then I have work which is related to product management. I do a monthly schedule. I make a monthly schedule. So in such a way that I divide a month into 4 weeks. And I say, like, okay, I have one day in a week of doing absolutely nothing related to work, or maybe anything, any side project or anything at all. And this 24 hours is reserved for my family doing it's more like a yes day with my child, right? So I'm gonna do all the crazy things, and it's basically relaxing and unwinding for the week. Then I do have some other things in my bucket, weekly bucket or a monthly bucket. Okay, I need to get things done, like maybe including the house chores as well. Okay, this is how I need to manage, because that's important, especially if you have a family. And then again, I reserve times. Okay, I'm not working on this day. Let's suppose this is a weekend. It's not a work day for me, so I might do something for my hobbies, or like my side projects that makes me happy, that is related to my passion. So that's how I kind of manage my time. But I also was interested in, like you guys mentioned, about the tools you guys use for managing the time. Of course, there are a lot of things that could be in your head, but you can't get it done unless you have a to-do list or a reminder. And lately I have been exploring several tools, even at work. Okay, what am I doing? Should I use Jira? And I'm talking about like these technology tools like Jira, maybe Trello, Monday, and can I use those tools to manage my own personal time? So yeah, like you mentioned, Shashank, about Excel sheet as well. It's a free and one of the best tools. Easiest to use,
Yeah, I
very
mean,
less learning curve. And then if you want something more, you can actually use the other tools as well.
yeah.
So yeah, very briefly, because we don't have much time and I have a few more questions. What is your favorite tool, Amar and Shashar? Project management. And I see a smile on both of your faces.
Yeah,
Please.
so that's what, right? Like, I would just like add to what just Amar said, right? So tools do matter to help you organize, but for example, you are already a project manager and you're doing everything right. No matter what tool will help you, it's about the frameworks and the knowledge you have already learned. For example, prioritization is such a key element. Leadership team would give you 100 projects if you say you're going to deliver 100 projects. Sometimes like there is a joke, right? Like at the end of the day, we people used to ask, like, what do project managers do? We used to say we are gatekeepers. what gatekeepers are for. We are gatekeepers for value. There are 100 different projects they know the leadership team want to be built today, and you're only seeing couple of those projects or couple of those items that are being worked on. So I would still say, the tools are only mostly going to help you get there, but these frameworks that you have, for example, what is the must, like, for example, one framework is like Moscow, right? Like, must have, should have, could have, or 20% of work is going to deliver 80% of the value most of the time. So focus on the 20%. So rather than, I would tell people, focusing on tools, focus on frameworks that will help you deliver value and become a more effective project manager. Tools, they keep changing every day. There will be a new tool that will be making your life easier, but I personally like my Excel sheets. I know I'm a bit old school, but it helps me keep tracking organized, and it helps me do most of the stuff. I like all office tools, but again, different organizations use Jira and stuff like that, so you have to adapt to organizational needs from project management perspective. So I am not going to pick a much favorite. I'll just say Excel sheet. Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, so back to what Shashank said, like we are, if as a hiring manager, we are word processors too. We pick on certain words when you guys are talking. If you guys talk too much about the tools, that is an indication that you are not a senior intermediate person. Because from the technology background, we always have a lot of fascination with the tools. We mostly focus on the frameworks, as Shashank said. We need to understand that you have the right mindset, you have the right experience and knowledge while we bring in different tools. For example, when you're working as a project manager, consulting, like that's, we are a consultant in that particular domain. We will have different teams, we will work on different products, we will work for different organization, and every organization would have their own preferred tool set. So we have to look at the adaptability and flexibility, that you're pretty strong in your own knowledge of project management, program management. That's the first fundamental thing. If you still insist, like what will be my favorite project management project, MS Project is the must-have tool. Excel definitely gets to a certain limitations when it comes to managing large and complex projects. Microsoft Project allows you to find dependencies, resource allocation, does a lot of reporting itself. So that's one of the key tools that we always ask the people to have good familiarity with. And if you're a senior one, that we would like you to have a really good proficiency with that one. The second, excellent. So Shashank is also agreeing with me on that one.
Yes, I used to love my Microsoft MS Projector tool,
It's,
but once I moved to the new organization, certain teams are not allowing those kind
yeah,
of
and
tools.
that's
Yeah.
what Shashank said. Like most of like it is a very specific tool for a particular domain. For example, you would have certain applications, AutoCAD and few others that are very specialized tools for particular domains. I'm not getting into much details here, but Microsoft Project is something that people are not very comfortable with. But and that's why the other people that who are consuming output of project management plan, looking at the plans in future, they prefer you export it to Excel. And eventually it's like, if I have to give you an Excel, I would rather do it in Excel. So that's how most of the organization has ended up using Excel. So if you look at there are two clear segments here. One is Microsoft dominated domain, Microsoft Project, SharePoint as your document repository. Those are the two, one of the major market leaders. Second one that is continuously gaining more ground is Jira and Confluence. These are the two different segments and tool set, combination of tool set that we always encourage people to have exposure to.
And just to add on to that, right? Like, even if you're good with one project, for example, Jira, you see a different version like AHA, or different organizations use different tools. At the end of the day, the view you're going to use, the concepts you're going to see there, what are user stories, what are acceptance criteria, it's all going to remain the same. So it's definitely ideal, if you have never used any of these tools or worked in this ecosystem, to be aware of this. Like Microsoft Project, I think you can simply find YouTube videos on how to use Microsoft Project, and it will help you get the view of it. Directly, if you build your entire project plan in Excel sheet, it may be difficult, but I started using many of these online available templates readily available these days. And most of these templates, I kind of picked it by what I'm used to Microsoft project. Okay, this template helps me do a similar task in Excel sheet. So it is going to save a lot of time than rebuilding the whole plan. If you're used to one tool, you'll automatically able to transfer those skill sets into any other tool. But it's important you understand how that works and how that project flow works. Yeah.
Thank you, Shashank. Thank you. So we have, even though I have a lot of questions, I do have to wrap up very quickly. But I do have, one important question about the timeline or the career. At which point it's best to start a project management career, and the question that arose. The reason behind it was because a lot of there are fresh graduates who are interested in saying, okay, I need to go into management. What should be my career path, right? Should I just graduate and start the project management right away? Is it the best time to start, or you do something else? You do gain industry experience in any of basically industry first, like individual contributor, and then you go for project management, so you have something to bring to the plate as a project management within an organization. So what would you say on that part? And then following up would be, who would not be a good project manager? So basically that's it. So please take it away.
Yeah, I would let Amar go first because
Yes.
he has more experience and
Yeah,
more
and
depth with this
Shashank and I
answer.
are on the same page. Like anything he has said, absolutely. From my perspective, I think I've already given the verdict. You have to work as a project team member before you go to the project manager. Shashank has been a developer. I started as a developer. I'll be really surprised to see a person who started right into the project management without having worked as any of the role in a project team. For example, a lot of good business analysts or product owner can become product program managers. They can easily become project managers. I have seen design people, back to what Brandon was asking. One of the large digital transformation project we did for a large BC organization, uh, our lead, like the customer lead or our technology partner that was leading the bigger initiative, was from the design and user experience team. She was not a project manager. I somehow in a dotted line was reporting to her. She and I were co-leading that transformation, but she had a lot of say. So she could easily step into my role. I wouldn't be able to step in her role. So I would say start as one of a project role, regardless developer. You become a team lead, you become a senior business analyst, you become a senior user experience and UI person. Then you try to transition into the project management. And I will also tell you one thing that was a bit discouraging for me stepping very young into this role. There is a perception that like right now, if I go for a job, like they will look at enough gray hairs, that's good for a project manager. The project managers are expected to have a certain experience and some experience under their belts. So that's one thing that you have to remember. I had difficult time because you're leading and sometimes you're working with senior team members. They will question your experience on certain domain. So as I simply try to answer, work in a project team and one particular role, get your experience, get your understanding and terminologies right, then get into the project management.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything Amar has just said there. It's especially I face that issue, right? Like because I transitioned into project management like less than 3 years into my career as a software developer, and before someone said yes, like I got 9 no's, and it's because it's important for a project manager at least to have some experience working in a project, because you need to understand the different dynamics. If you're someone who have never worked in a team of like 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever the size, but for significant amount of time you do not understand the different moving parts and dynamics that will happen there, and during this time you get a chance to take some initiatives and you get an opportunity to learn how a project will go from starting kickoff phase to delivery phase. There are a lot of things that happens over that period of time, and when you're being this individual contributor, you get to take these initiatives and work along, be curious and ask your project managers what's happening and learn how to become a project manager. But it's definitely helpful to have some prior experience. But again, I would say the same thing, right? You definitely need not have like 10 years, 20 years experience to become a project manager. That's what I have been told. And slowly, one of the things that worked for me was I was doing my software developer job, but at the same time, I was doing 50% of my time as project management in the same organization, like a transitioning phase. Luckily, my manager supported that, and I was working with another team where I was spending 50% of my time to understand how the process goes through. After 6 months, when I actually got a chance to give the interview and move, it was easy for me because during this 6 month period, I was able to build some experience and able to have some stories to tell. Like, what are the challenges I faced during this role, and how did I overcome these challenges, and what are some areas of improvement I can have here. So definitely being able to have some experience helpful. Otherwise, your life is going to be really, really difficult without any experience, and you just want to be a project manager. So be an individual contributor at least for a couple of years in your career before you make a choice. I'm going to be a project manager. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shashank and Amar. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up now because we are a bit over time. So we discussed and we touched on your journeys as well, which was very, interesting because you both have been an immigrant. Shashank, you just came last year, and Amar, you spent more than a decade over here, and you built a career out of project management. And we also touched on how and like what is required to become a project manager, especially when you're coming to Canada. A lot of people are interested in coming over here, but they face difficulty in getting into the industry or finding their dream role. They have to go through certain steps, which takes a lot of their time, right? And so thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing your experiences and insight, and letting us know what are the key things that you see in a person, whether or not they are experienced. So obviously there is still hope for people who don't have experience but they want to change their career, get into the industry, whether or not they have spent a decade in the industry or just 2 or 1 year. So thank you so much for touching on that. Um, for now, I would love to know if you would be interested in the fact that if somebody contacts you, our audience, you would be comfortable in sharing your perspective and insight with them. So it's okay, right? So I'm basically going to share your introduction as well as LinkedIn profile for someone who wants to connect with our speakers afterwards. And so this one basically was about to be or not to be a project manager, and we brought the questions that would help you decide whether you want to choose it as your next career choice. In future, we are bringing different roles as well, so keep yourself, up to date. Make sure you reach out to NeedSpot LinkedIn, and see what is there for you and what we are bringing for you. So thank you very much once again, Amar and Shashank, for joining me. Please contact if anybody is interested in speaking or they want to know which topic we are bringing in the future or they want to suggest, please contact us on inquiry at needspot.ca. Any last words, Amar, in session before we just finish our session?
Thank you for having us, Sarah. And it was a great opportunity to talk to some of our fellow future professionals as well as immigrants. If you guys have more questions and queries, do contact Sarah at the given email address. I'll be more than happy to respond to. And if you, Sarah, if you want to set up another future session, as you know, a way to get me, I'll be more than happy to entertain another request. Good luck with all of that and continue to work hard. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Last word from my side, I would say, it's not easy being an immigrant in a new country. And I did struggle getting my first job here or getting a job as a project manager. Definitely hard. I would just say, have a plan, be disciplined, and believe in yourself, and keep upskilling. Like, if you do not know something, try to learn and keep going, get it once again. And if you feel stuck, feel free to reach out to, people who are already in the same shoes as you want to be. And mentorship always helps. So I would just say, don't give up. You got this. And yeah, thanks for inviting me, Sarah. And feel free to check out needspot.ca website. Feel free to get in touch with Sarah. She's so helpful. So yeah.
Thank you, Shashank and Amar. So see ya maybe in next year, near future. Okay, bye.
Bye.